Hey guys, so today I'm going to make a video that I've actually wanted to make for a really long time, and this one's more so addressed to my friends actually, because let's imagine if I'm out and my friends are saying to me, oh, you know, you're an aesthetic doctor, and these are always going to be guys or girls in their 30s, and they're going to say, what should I get done? And this is just a really common subject that comes up, and it's a little bit awkward because this is what I do professionally for a living, and I would never, suggest giving this type of advice over a dinner table or even in a social setting. But having said that, I think it's good to kind of be aware of the aging process and what happens, because the more you know and understand about anything, the happier you're always going to be with any decisions or choices that you do make. So this one is more so for people who are maybe in their early 30s, who have never ever done anything before in their life, and really they just want to learn and understand a bit more about the non-surgical aesthetic industry and what the most common treatment plans are and the types of things that people are doing. So broadly speaking, the aging process starts from the age of 25 onwards, and from that point onwards, you're always in a state where things are being built up and things are being broken down within your face. That's always going on. But from 25 onwards, it kind of switches where the breakdown happens a little bit quicker than the build up, and that presents itself to you as an individual as aging. And this actually happens in a bit of a predictable manner, and the best way to understand it is to think about the 5 layers of anatomy or the 5 layers of tissue within your face, because they're all going to age in a slightly different way. And really people mainly start to notice this in their late 20s to early 30s, where they might start to experience certain almost emotional changes, such as feeling like they look a little bit tired, or noticing a little bit of heaviness maybe in their face that they didn't previously have, or even their face shape might be starting to change just a little bit. And I'm not saying that there's any issue with this. For many people it's not an issue at all, but for those people who it does bother, I always think the most important thing is just to understand what's happening, because like I said, if you understand what's going on, then you'll always be happier with the different options that are in front of you. So talking about the anatomy, the most important layers are going to be the 2 deeper ones. So the 2 deeper ones, I've got a little prop here, which is the skull. And essentially speaking, the 2 deeper ones are going to be the skull and the layer of deep fat which sits on top of the skull. And in terms of the areas where this is going to hollow or start to actually reduce itself, so I'm talking about bony changes and deep fat changes, the most common ones that happen are going to be in 3 specific areas. So the first one is going to be up high in the temple, up in this area here. And no patient ever says, or no individual ever says, oh my God, help, my temples are going in and it's really bothering me. That's not what people say. But having said that, what comes from that is heaviness just below the brow, almost a little bit of a drop in the eyebrow, and that contributes towards people feeling like they look a little bit tired. And there's a misconception that people think, okay, well that means they might need to get a Botox brow lift to actually manipulate the muscles and lift things back into a different position. But actually it's more about restoring the deep down tissue of the actual skull and deep fat, and that's going to help lift this area of the face, which is going to help combat the emotion of feeling a little bit tired. So the second one is going to be a bit lower down the maxilla. So it's actually part of the cheek just under the eye here. And this part is probably the most important area of aging, because it causes all sorts of issues or concerns that people feel that they experience later on. So on the one hand, it's going to impact the way that your under eye looks, because people can feel that they look a little bit more tired. Secondly, as this part of the cheek starts to go in, that actually leads to the skin fold or the smile lines, which start to deepen. These smile lines can track down towards the corner of the mouth and then further down towards the jowl. And actually for someone who comes in, let's say in their 40s or 50s, and they've never done anything before, and their big concern is going to be the lower face, very often our treatment plans actually start by treating them higher up in the face and restoring volume that they've lost in these sort of territories here, to lift up and pull back and soften some of the sort of sagging and heaviness that's happening lower down in the face. So the second area of loss is going to be here in the actual maxilla and the deep cheek. That also contributes towards the sort of tear trough region, where people can lose volume under their eyes and look a little bit more tired as well. And that's a really, really key critical area of restoration for these type of treatment plans. The last one is actually within the chin, where the chin over time starts to recess. So as this chin starts to come in, that happens a little bit later, but that happens along with the cheek going in to ultimately impact the jawline and the lower third of the face, because as the chin starts to come in here, as the cheek starts to come in here, this can ultimately lead to the breaking of the jawline and the jowl formation, where people start to notice their jawline shape actually changes over time. So these three areas, the temple, the mid-cheek and the chin, are all areas that can be restored, not enhanced. So for someone who's in their early 30s and they like the way that they look and they want to stay looking how they look, and they want to sort of not change their face, not change how they look, but just sort of stay where they are, these are the key areas that we want to try and restore. Okay, so now that we've spoken about the really important layers, which are the deeper layers that give you the structure, that's the bone and the deep fat, we can move on to the next layers of tissue. So the next layer up is going to be the actual muscle, and the muscle hypercontracts or gets tighter in two particular areas. So one's going to be in the upper face, and this is kind of the more traditional 3 areas of anti-wrinkle injections, because as these muscles get tighter, people start to notice fine lines and wrinkles. A lot of people say to me, when should I start with anti-wrinkle injections? It's a really common question. And if it's something that bothers you, the best answer I feel is when you start to notice static lines. So static lines are when you've got fine lines and wrinkles present at rest. So even when you're not frowning, when you're not raising your eyebrows, when you're not doing anything, these fine lines and wrinkles get deeper over time, and when they get really deep, it can be quite hard to undo. But if they get treated quite early on, then they'll never really get that deep. And for many people, they find that to be kind of quite a smooth way of keeping a very natural look and delaying the aging process. And if that's what they want to do, that's a nice way to go about that. Along with the muscles in the upper face, you've got the muscles more in the neck, and what happens with the neck, which is a very complicated area overall, but with the neck, the muscles get tighter and they form these vertical bands along the platysma, and what these bands do is they almost pull down on the face slightly. So again, anti-wrinkle injections in the neck can be a good option for restoring a neck or beginning to restore a neck over time. Next, you've got the superficial fat, and then you've got the skin. So with these areas, particularly the superficial fat, this impacts people more so in their late 30s to early 40s, whereby as people lose superficial fat almost within their cheek here, it adds to almost the sagging that happens over time and the downwards descent. So not only do we want to restore and lift kind of the bone and the deep fat areas, but also the superficial fat, which it's a different type of fat to fat that people get on their tummy or fat that they get in their arms. It's a different type of fat. Again, this is quite structural, and usually within your face, it sort of lifts these areas up. So when people start to get more concerned with their lower face, for example, their jawline area, if there's a break in their jawline, or if they feel like they've got a lot of heaviness from the corners of their mouth downwards, to treat these areas in the best way possible, you always want to lift and restore higher up. So along with restoring the bone and the deep fat, you restore the superficial fat too, to really lift and just rejuvenate and restore. Finally, you've got the skin, and skin maintenance can start quite early. Obviously, there are some important things that people could do at home every day. For example, using really good sun protection, because as we know, sun damage is probably the most common form of damage to your skin that can contribute towards the aging process. Avoiding certain things such as smoking cigarettes and trying to avoid pollution as best as we can. Obviously, that's near enough impossible in a city like London. But with skin maintenance, you can use your at-home topical skincare with a daily skin regime to help protect your skin, and that's a good thing that people often start early. Over time, as we start to lose a little bit of elastin or collagen and there's a loss of skin laxity, this is actually something that can be directly restored using injectable skin boosters. So if we're going to think of fillers almost as Play-Doh. So with the hyaluronic acid that we want to inject deep down for structural support, the formulation of it is almost a bit thicker because we want it to add support and add structure and stay where it is and not move, and we essentially want it to just add support and lift and just replace what you've lost. with our actual skin, we've got different types of fillers which are skin boosters, and the chemistry is completely different. With these, think of it more almost as little injections of honey that you're going to have just in the surface of your skin at specific areas to target fine lines and wrinkles. And this type of filler is free moving. So it's not free moving in a way that it migrates, it's free moving in a way that it just travels throughout your skin and boosts. And what that's really going to target is fine lines, elasticity and hydration, and the overall skin texture. So this is again something that we can restore and just keep it in a certain way, keep it elastic, keep it hydrated. So overall, if you've got someone who's in their 30s to 40s and they've never had anything before, this is always the best way to think about treatment plans, because the most important question is what bothers you. If something doesn't bother you, you don't need to do anything at all. If something does bother you, the understanding of the cause of that through the loss of deep support, the hypercontraction of muscles, the superficial fat as well, and then the more superficial skin, understanding the difference between all of these is ultimately going to help you achieve the best type of treatment plan. So thank you very much. I hope you found that useful and I hope you enjoyed it.